So what is an account stated? My name is Andrew Ayers. I'm a business law and estate planning attorney with offices in Edina, Minnesota and New York City. And today we're going to look at a common cause of action you'll see in a lawsuit where you have a breach of contract and the party suing wants to make sure that they're getting all their bases covered. So if you're running a business or you're involved in a lawsuit that involves a breach of contract, you probably have run across a claim for an account stated. Now, normally when clients come to me and they've received this kind of claim, they aren't really sure what exactly it means. It sounds pretty simple, an account stated, but you need to understand what the legal requirements are for you to prove a cause of action for account stated. So normally we're going to start with the idea there's a breach of contract. So you and the other party have a contract and you've agreed certain things and one party or the other hasn't performed under that contract. And when we think of breach of contract cases, we often think of long drawn out contracts, 50, 60, 70 page long contracts, all kinds of provisions, all kinds of clauses. They become very complex and we're not sure, how did we breach this or did we miss something on page 52? An account stated is usually the other end of the spectrum. If you're in a service business like a restaurant, you're probably used to working off of invoices. So for example, you're running that restaurant and you're buying heads of lettuce from a produce supplier. They probably bring you 50 heads of lettuce and give you an invoice, and you're supposed to then pay them whatever's on the invoice. That invoice, when we're using that as the basis for a lawsuit, is often where we encounter the idea of an account stated. So to establish this cause of action for an account stated, we need to show three things. First, that there was an agreement between the parties about the debt. Second, that the other party received notice of the agreement. And third, the other party failed to pay the agreed upon amount. So let's go back to our example of an invoice. So the invoice is usually used as evidence of the agreement between the parties. So for example, the invoice will say 50 heads of lettuce at $2 per head. So the total invoice is $100, and maybe there's some taxes or services, but we'll keep it at $100 to keep it simple. So the party suing on that invoice, your lettuce supplier says, clearly there was an agreement. We all agreed I will supply you lettuce at the price of $2 a head, and I'll give you 50 heads of lettuce. Now, the reason why you may encounter this more in a service type of business is that a long contract of 50 or 60 pages isn't always going to make sense in this case, because a head of lettuce may vary in price. So for example, 1 month a head of lettuce may be $2, but with inflation and other supply chain issues, maybe 3 months down the road that head of lettuce is $3 now. And so your invoice will say 50 heads of lettuce at $3, and now that invoice is for $150. So we're using that invoice to prove the agreement on the price. Second, we need to show that the other party received notice of the agreement. So in this case, that notice is going to be when that person comes to your restaurant and hands you the invoice for the heads of lettuce along with delivering the heads of lettuce. Now, some days it may actually not be handing an invoice to you, it may be emailed to you. Maybe it's emailed to you in advance just to say, hey, we're dropping off 50 heads of lettuce on Thursday, here's the invoice for it. Please either pay us by check when we drop them off, or you can wire money to our account or make payment some other way. So the idea is that invoice provides the notice of the agreement. And then the third step in an account stated cause of action is that somebody fails to pay the agreed upon amount. So when we're looking at the agreed upon amount, it's 50 heads of lettuce at $2. The agreed upon amount is $100. So a lot of times people will ask, well, it seems so simple. There's just an account stated. How can there be any defense to it? Well, the simple defense is that the other party, for example, the restaurant owner, doesn't agree to something like this. Maybe the restaurant owner in advance of that delivery on Thursday emailed and said, you know what, I don't need 50 heads of lettuce this week. We're having different specials. It's Valentine's Day coming up. We don't need lettuce. We only need 15 heads of lettuce at $2. But the supplier still drops off 50. Well, that objection can serve as the basis to defeat the claim for an account stated, because at that point, you don't have an agreement upon what the amount should be. You don't have an agreement as to how many heads of lettuce should be delivered. There was an objection. So usually when you see this cause of action, you will see language in the complaint that says the invoice was given to somebody and no objection was received. However, if you had that objection, you may then have to revert back to a breach of contract or an unjust enrichment claim or some other quasi-contractual claim to support your lawsuit for repayment. So although the account stated sounds pretty simple, there are some little intricacies that you need to make sure you're getting right. So if you're involved in a lawsuit and account stated is one of the branches of the lawsuit, or if you're thinking of bringing a lawsuit and you're not sure what those causes of action should be, let's set up a legal strategy session to discuss the best next steps for you. You can go to my website, andrewmayers.com. There's a red legal strategy session button on the main page. When you click that, you'll be taken to my personal calendar, where we can set up a 15 or 20-minute legal strategy session to discuss where you are in the process and what those next steps are. If you like this video, hit that like button down there. You can go over and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on future videos.